Hi everybody, welcome to the Stellium Astrology podcast. I'm Stephanie James, your host, and today I've gone a bit rogue. I normally have a little plan. Oh, hang on, let me just put my phone on. Oh, it is on flight mode. Yeah, I put it on flight mode when I'm recording just in case it interrupts me like it just did. But yes, so I wanted to talk today about a recent series that I've watched, and I have gone a bit rogue because normally I have a plan, and today I've gone off piste off piste to talk about what I want to basically. So the recent thing that I watched is a Netflix TV show called Ancient Apocalypse, and the presenter, the person whose research is shared on this TV show, is somebody called Graham Hancock. And Graham Hancock is a very interesting person. I've got his astro.com page up because we actually have his the perfect data, basically AA. It's the Rodden rating is AA, which means we can trust it. I think it means that we've seen the birth certificate actually. And it says here that he's a British writer and journalist. Hancock specialises in unconventional theories involving ancient civilizations, stone monuments or megaliths, altered states of consciousness, ancient myths, and astronomical/astrological data from the past. One of the main themes running through many of his books is a posited global connection with a mother culture from which he believes all ancient historical civilizations sprang. An example of pseudo-archaeology, his work has neither been peer-reviewed nor published in academic journals. His books have sold more than 5 million copies worldwide and have been translated to 27 languages. Not bad going, really. Oh yes, so we've seen birth certificate in hand, apparently. Now, the fact that he's interested in astronomy and astrology, I don't remember the specific date, but I can link an article that I wrote about it. Up until it was thought that there was the solar system, the model of the solar system was geocentric, meaning Earth-centered. So up until that point, it was believed that astrology worked, and it was as credible as astronomy. Whereas now, from that point onward, it's all been a bit. From that point onwards, it's changed somewhat. The perspective has changed because they were like, oh, well, if it's sun-centered, then everything previous to this has not made sense. It's a bit like when you demote a planet like Pluto, and then everyone goes, well, what does that mean about astrology then? If Pluto doesn't exist anymore as a planet, it's like he's always been there, and unless something happens that just smashes him into smithereens, Pluto will continue to be there, and his presence is quite obvious when you look at this is the thing about astrology that makes me laugh. People think it's a load of rubbish, but they're not prepared to do the research and find out, come to their own conclusions. They just think, no, I can't see that would work, and they just jump on that, and they're just like, oh, it don't work. Let's have a little look at the I've got the chart in front of me. As you can see, I was just reading his Astro Wiki page, and what we have here is the 2nd of August 1950. Yes, so he was born in 1950 at 1950 BST, British summertime. So that's universal time -1. And that is in Edinburgh in Scotland. So let's have a little look. He's got 10 Capricorn rising. So you might imagine that somebody who is has some kind of Capricorn flavour to their chart would be interested in tradition. And I think that Capricorn honors the past in a way, like they honor, they respect tradition, they respect how things have always been done. It's like a kind of, I think Cancer and Capricorn are kind of heritage orientated signs, and I think Capricorn also respects a sense of lineage as well. So like when you've got things like when you think about Cancer and it's all about family and it's all about home and the past and that connection to your, like I often refer to it, the culture, like the culture that you're born into, the family culture. When it comes to Capricorn, I think there's a respect for, I think that's what tradition is almost. It's like honouring a kind of lineage of doing something and honouring a system or a way things have always been done. Like Christmas, I was just thinking about how funny it is that I'm indoctrinating my son into Christmas and meeting Father Christmas and doing that, because it's just what we've always done. I don't have a problem with doing it. It's about that respecting of the traditions and doing things the way things have always been done. But let's have a look and see if there's anything else in his chart that might speak otherwise. So he has Cancer on the descendant, obviously, but he has Venus and Uranus in conjunction. So Venus and Uranus together is a bit like a cult classic, because I think of things, when I think of cult classics, I think of things like Pulp Fiction, the film, films that start off being like kind of B movies or alternative ideas. They appeal to like an alternative audience, but then they become, iconic, basically. And I do feel like, we might say that Neptune is the icon, but actually, Uranus and Venus, it feels like there's a sense of cult classic about it, because it's appealing, but it's very unique. And I think that that's what he clearly attracts in his audience, is people who are very unusual. I'm speaking about myself here, but I might have shared with you in the past, when I was talking to my patrons about it the other day, that I'm a fan of podcasts since the dawning of podcasting. I've been listening to podcasts for 15 years, possibly longer, before they were really a thing, like before people really were bothered about it. I don't even know if it was on the apps, the Apple Store. I think the Apple Store did exist, the Apple Podcasts, but it's been a long time. And I used to go onto websites and listen to people's podcasts directly off their websites, and it was always alternative. It was always I used to listen to one called Paranormal Radio, another one called Half Past Human, and it was all very just, it's very Mercury and Aquarius, very Aquarian, I think, podcasting. It's about talking to your specific community and doing it in a very Aquarian way. You can almost think of like Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, looking like a kind of an aerial that transmits. And I think that Graham Hancock has been somebody who's been, I've listened to him now for at least as long as I've been listening to as long as I can recall, I've been listening to podcasts. I've been a fan for a long time. So apologies if this isn't your cup of tea. I know that Ancient Apocalypse is very divisive, but I actually love exploring different ideas. I think it's important for the mental, intellectual evolution of our species. Whether or not he's right, I think it's important to entertain alternative ideas, because otherwise we stagnate. And I think Robert Anton Wilson says that belief is the death of intelligence. It may not be Robert Anton Wilson, but I'm pretty sure it was him who said that. I wholeheartedly agree that if you just subscribe to a belief system and you don't question, you unflinchingly commit yourself to an idea, then you rule out so many different options and so many different ideas and opportunities. You're literally missing windows where the world could be a completely different place. Great book on that. It's called Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson, actually, and he talks about adopting different belief systems temporarily and really immersing yourself into different belief systems in order to see how the world adapts to your new beliefs and your new ideas. I think the tagline for the book is, what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. So you can find evidence for every idea if you want to. So it's interesting, really, that this could be such a controversial subject. I even think that Robert Anton Wilson said, if you're better messing with somebody's wife. Yeah, something like, you're better off at messing with somebody's wife than messing with their belief system. People will protect their beliefs, which are very entangled with ego, I believe, above anything that they really physically possess or are connected to in this lifetime. If you threaten somebody's beliefs and challenge their ideas about reality, that's more threatening to them and more damaging to the ego than if you were to just go off and sleep with their wife or their partner. A bit of an extreme example, but it goes to show the power of belief. Now, back to Graham Hancock. This is somebody who is, I think he likes to collect ideas. I think he's somebody who is obviously very original in the way he approaches his environment. I mean, he's got an Aries moon there, 6 degrees. This is I do think of Aries as being quite original, though I think that Frank Clifford would say that Aries are very good at coming along, finding an idea and breathing new life into it. So you might say that all of these things that are here on the planet to discover, and if you haven't seen Ancient Apocalypse, in a nutshell, he talks about ancient monuments, ancient structures that there's literally no explanation of how they could have been built with the technology that they were suspected to have back in those days. Hello, Archer, this cat. So yeah, there's this mystery shrouded around how these structures ever existed with the current technology they were suspected to have, and looking at alternative research, archaeological research, which predates these structures to be much older than we previously thought. He talks about the agenda with archaeology being that it's censored because there's certain ideas that they don't. If we uncovered certain aspects of archaeology and made it public knowledge, it would literally rattle our sense of security. It would shake our egos as a collective, because our belief system around how we came to be would be completely shattered. So that is interesting when you see that on his descendant he has got Venus and Uranus in Cancer straddling his descendant as well. So he has this attractive but repulsive quality about him. The Netflix series was described to be one of the most dangerous TV shows on Netflix, possibly one of the most dangerous TV shows of all, probably because it's so threatening. I was having a debate about this with my partner, saying, why is it dangerous? And he was saying, like, to entertain ideas without much evidence could be dangerous, particularly if people subscribe to it without really fully understanding what it is, the implications. And I was like, that doesn't feel dangerous to me. That just feels like an inquiring mind. However, I do think it is dangerous if people are frightened of the new threats that it presents and are of a weak mental disposition, where they're more likely to have suicidal ideations. Like when people talk about, oh my gosh, there's going to be an apocalypse. Nostradamus predicted that the world's going to end at midnight tonight, or, the millennium bug. Some people are so frightened of that sort of thing that they are prepared to kill themselves over it. It could spin people into very dark states of mind as well. So I think for me, that's personally where the threat lies. But maybe I'm wrong, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, actually. If you're enjoying this episode at the moment, by the way, please do hit the subscribe button and press the thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening to my podcast on Spotify or Apple podcasts, please consider rating it. You can just find there's a little menu where you can go in and you can rate the podcast. So I'd really appreciate that, and I'm really appreciative of the people that already have. So yes, this is a attractive and repulsive quality. It's almost like the opposite ends of a magnet when it comes to that kind of that essence, and that's exactly how he seems to what the impact he has on people is. They feel very drawn to his ideas, they love it, but then there's other people that are just absolutely repulsed by them. It upsets a lot of history. It upsets religion in some ways. In some ways it really reinforces religion as well, I think, in the sense, not necessarily that we talk about a god, an almighty being, but that it talks about the many different types of cataclysms described in the ancient mythologies of each religion, and it's uncanny how they're all connected, and they all were stargazers. They were all interested in astronomy and astrology. The zodiac played a very big part in pinpointing our location in the skies, as well as looking for major fixed stars, in particular Sirius, which I think is known as Canis Major. And what was even more interesting about some of these ancient religions or ancient civilizations was that they were aware that Sirius was a binary star system prior to our modern science being aware of this. It was only when we developed the technology and were able to look through strong telescopes to identify that actually Sirius had an A star and a B star. And you know, Sirius is one of the largest, I think is the largest star in our night sky, visible usually I think over the southern hemisphere. In the summer months, it rises up into the northern hemisphere. When I say the southern hemisphere, what I mean is in a southern direction in the northern hemisphere, it starts to dip up and we can see it. And in the winter months, I think it dips down again. So you know, it's very interesting how with these ancient civilizations were able to communicate ideas with each other, and they have all these very similar stories, and they have these very similar buildings. Like some of them are pyramids, and you find pyramids all over the place. They're all obsessed with specific types of symbolism, particularly including snake symbolism in a lot of their building and architecture decorations. So it's very fascinating, and the case he puts across is actually it fills in a lot of blanks, and it, you know, I think for some people it makes a lot of sense, and for other people they just are like, how can this guy be so outrageous about what he's stating here? It is outrageous. But I am a particular fan of anything outrageous and completely different. I have an Aquarius stellium, of course, and I also have a Jupiter Uranus conjunction. I think with the Cancer on his descendant as well, which obviously you know, his moon is at 6 degrees, so it's kind of like square his ascendant and descendant, his moon. So it puts it, I suppose it puts you know, this is quite obvious here that he's got this kind of attractive, repulsive quality, and he also has the ability to wake people up. And there might be even a sense of comfort to some people, though he may disturb people from their comfort in the alternative expression of this combination. But when it comes to the moon sitting down here between the 3rd and 4th house cusp, if we're using equal, which I am, and in conjunction with the North Node in his 3rd house, it is his destiny to research, collect, and breathe new life into old ideas or old structures. And you know, the moon sitting down there is a very, very introspective placement. I think it's one that is very connected to its own truth, actually, and its own connection to the past. So though we might think, oh well, Cancer is, you know, the sign of the past and where we come from and stuff, it's also incredibly I've said it before, like kind of very patriotic. Cancer fights for its family, and Cancer fights for its tribe and its sense of belonging. In many ways, what he does is he creates a sense of belonging for us all, because we suddenly realize it's so much bigger than we thought. We're not divided. You know, every landmass is not a disconnected, you know, separate entity that we're all sort of like doing our own thing in individual tribes. Suddenly he brings it all together as one huge sort of sense of belonging, as we are all on this planet. We're all vulnerable to larger threats that come from outside of this planet. So it's fascinating how he's almost been born to wake people up to this sense of connectedness, while also disconnecting them from a sense of academic education, you know, the way that we're taught so far, you know. He's got that sun in Leo, so obviously he's very good at being the front man for this, I would say, this cause. But you know, he's fearlessly standing and sharing his thoughts and ideas, and he's been discredited, laughed at, and shamed for so many years. I think he's been doing this for 30 years, and for 30 years he's met such opposition. Now, where would we see opposition in a birth chart? Look, we have the moon, and yes, it's very wide, but he has got a moon Neptune opposition, which, you know, and he's also got the nodes there as well. So his south node, so his moon is in conjunction with the north node, but obviously opposite the south node. I do feel like there is a sense of inner conflict about what he does. I think he's doing the right thing by following his truth. But I think actually for him, he's straying as well. If we look at like the South Node in the 9th house, he's really straying from the academic path and what's widely accepted. But he's also leaning on his own set of values, his own set of principles, in order to carry a message to the people, which is bold and different and daring, and puts him in a, when I say vulnerable position, I suppose in a professionally vulnerable position, because, you know, you become a laughing stock when you speak out against the norm. You know, there's so many people in history who were laughed at for suggesting that the solar system might be sun-centered, or, you know, all sorts of wild ideas that eventually became proven. And, you know, we go, oh wow, oh gosh, isn't it sad that we, you know, absolutely ridicule somebody who has the vision to see things in a different way. So you know, we have got this opposition here wide, but, you know, the moon is going to be creeping to oppose Neptune, which can be you know, a sense of people, when you have like a moon Neptune opposition, there can be a sense of people feeling manipulated sometimes. You know, either the people you meet feel like they have been manipulated, or, you know, there's more to the story. The truth, there's a truth that's not really being discussed or being exposed. And that Neptune in his 10th house, it's like people think he's making stuff up, or maybe he's just not of sound mind. You know, there's something here that's like, you know, he's trying to remove that cloud of confusion. And, you know, it's a struggle to, you know, he's standing his ground on this. It just, interestingly, Mars is at 25 Libra, and that's his natal Mars, and Mars retrograde, stationed retrograde at, I think, 25 or 24 of Gemini, and is going back to about, is it going back to the 12th degree? I can't remember now. It's going, it might even be going back a bit further. But it's, you know, it's got a short little moonwalk to do, and then it's going to be going direct again. But for this to all be coming out now and to be creating such controversy, which he's no stranger of, is interesting. He's also got a Mercury-Jupiter opposition. So we've got, you know, Mercury and Jupiter rule the 3rd and the 9th house cusps. They also rule the 12th and the 6th house cusps. So interestingly, because normally that is the rulership, we normally have Pisces and Virgo on the 12th and the 6th, and we would normally have Gemini and Ujima flip Sagittarius on the 9th, the 3rd and 9th. So he's got this kind of like weird disorganization in his chart where things are slightly scrambled, but all the mutable signs are on the cusps of the mutable houses. But it kind of, it lends that Mercury Jupiter opposition, I think, is very important, because it's, Jupiter for me is the planet of vision, and Mercury is sitting up there in Virgo in the 8th house, absolutely desperate to make sense of the mystery. He's digging and digging into the mystery, and he's got Pluto in the 8th as well, so he's digging deep. Interesting that he would be talking about, and I can't remember all the names of the places now that he went to, but the one in Turkey where there are like underground caves which literally look like an ant colony that were for people. You know, that's so Pluto. You know, digging underground and finding this like lost kind of retreat for humans. You know, that's so like Pluto. And, you know, he's got Sun in Leo. Leo rules the 8th house cusp as well. So that Sun and Pluto in Leo are kind of working together. It's wide, but they're working together. He's like a moth to the flame when it comes to 8th house stuff. Wherever he can find a little bit, shine a little bit of light on that mystery, he's in there, obsessed with it. That Aries moon, which is trine his sun, is you know, absolutely you know, it's like the fuel, isn't it? The Aries is like a kind of a fire, that spark that just needs to get the engine going, and he's got that commitment of the fixity of the sun in Leo, which is creative and is there's a joy in what he does. I think that you couldn't do this without finding some kind of joy or some kind of pleasure, and maybe not necessarily about his own ego, but there's a sense of whatever he's discovering about this isn't just a story about humanity. It's about discovering who he is on a deep level too. It's about us collectively, but also as individuals, where we've come from. I think a few weeks ago I was talking about the Library of Alexandria, and I really feel like the stuff that was lost in Alexandria is the sort of thing that Graham Hancock is uncovering. I really believe that. So yes, the Mercury in Virgo, making sense of things in the 8th house, that digging, that underworld that he finds himself in, where, you know, Mercury in Virgo wants to be taken seriously. Capricorn rising wants to be taken seriously. They want to be heard and they want to have evidence for what they say. And I really do think that even though he's not been backed up and peer reviewed, you know, it's not been done in that respect, I think that he makes a great case, and it's all very interesting stuff that we can go away and have a look at for ourselves. So he's presented it in a very logical way. And Saturn in Virgo too, I think there would be a fear, particularly in the 9th house where Saturn is, of speaking out and being ridiculed, because, you know, Virgo definitely wants to make sense of things, and he's only speaking about what he sees that makes sense. I think what we could say is that this Venus-Uranus conjunction, which is square the moon and also square that Neptune. So it's not like a perfect T-square, because the two squares don't exactly meet, like, you know, exactly at the tip, at the apex. However, there really is a connection between these, because they are in conjunction. And so, yeah, this is a T-square. And this is the problem. This is the problem. He's remaining true to himself. You know, he needs to do this. This kind of Aries moon, he's doing it himself. He's adventuring, he's exploring, and he's helping people to discover about themselves, whether they want to or not. He's creating either an army of fans, or, you know, literally, you know, an army of haters as well. This kind of seesaw between doing what he feels he's born to do. This is a real it's a challenge, because there is a real sense of hoax about Neptune. Not that he is a hoaxer, you know, in whichever way you want to look at that. He's literally presenting his findings, and, you know, the fact that Netflix have invested a lot of money into making such a well-made docu-series, you know, it definitely seems like, you know, what he has to say is worth sharing. So yeah, having that moon opposite Neptune, there is a real sense of, like I said, hoax or disbelief, manipulation, like a lack of clarity. So he's, you know, really putting himself out there. And, you know, Neptune also rules that 3rd house. So he's going to be driven down a path which is a little bit more than just academic. There has to be an edge of, like I said, there's vision. He has to be able to connect with something on a feeling level in order to feel it out, which is anti-academic. You don't necessarily, I mean, I know a lot of the greats would have, who was it? The mathematician who came up with the some of the great, I can't remember who it was now, that's really going to annoy me. One of the great mathematicians was visited by an angel who told him about some of the techniques that we will learn about at school these days. And it's so interesting to me that something as you know, technical as mathematics could, you know, the concept of certain calculation techniques could have been born from a spiritual experience. But I feel like this is what is right for Graham Hancock, is to trust that he needs to follow his inner compass sometimes when it comes to his thought process, which I think is having Pisces on that 3rd house cusp. There's a sense of, it's kind of like the antithesis of like that structured and discerning Mercury in Virgo, having, you know, Pisces on the 3rd house cusp. It's asking you to trust your inner compass, and to go with the flow and not always have a structure as such. So he's really working with some, like, when I say conflicting, I think he's the perfect example of how somebody is working well with, you know, some challenging, when I say challenging aspects, I don't think that there's anything, I suppose the T-square is quite challenging, but, you know, I think that he's working in a really incredible way with his chart. And, you know, the fact that Netflix have now made a series is quite amazing. We've had the eclipses recently, moving over his MC and IC. So obviously, you know, he's already incredibly well known, but now being on Netflix, he's probably going to be catapulted into superstardom. And what I was looking at the other day when I was exploring the eclipses of 2023, we're going to have our final Scorpio Taurus lunation, and from that point onwards, when I say lunation, I'm talking about the eclipse, by the way, but from that point onwards, we're then going to move into Libra and Aries. So we're going to be having, let me see if I can do 2 charts. Oh, that's always annoying when I do that. There we go. So we've got the South Node. Oh, look, there we go. We've got South Node and Uranus hanging around his IC. And yeah, once they've moved into Libra, so he'll have the South Node in his 10th house, and he'll have the North Node in his 4th house. And I feel like, you know, he's obviously been triggered by these eclipses, and I feel like over 2023, over the coming sort of, you know, few months, I think that we will see that his ideas are shared more openly. And essentially, I think maybe this North Node moving into the 4th is about so because it's going to highlight his Mars, isn't it? The eclipses are going to highlight his Mars and his Neptune, and he's going to have you know, the Mars on the moon, and he'll have his nodal return as well, you know, in probably a year and a half or a couple of years time. So essentially, you know, this is a really poignant time for him, and he's just, you know, 2023 for us all is going to be interesting, but I think for Graham Hancock, it's, you know, Pluto moving into Aquarius, and you know, us having this great shift, and also him having, you know, major things like a nodal return, and you know, to have a lot of his career planets highlighted, I think is important. I think it's a pivotal for himself, and probably for the rest of us as well. So so that's interesting, isn't it? And yeah, so just looking back again at this Venus Uranus on the descendant, which I just find interesting. Venus is the ruler of his 10th house cusp, and also of his 5th. So this is, like I said, it's like a pure passion project turned career. And he's also got, I've got the cat on my lap here. I've got the cattail microphone. And yes, Uranus is the ruler of his 2nd house as well. So it's interesting that he focuses on buildings and stuff like that, but it's ancient buildings, which you'd associate with Aquarius being, you know, the sign of either being way ahead of your time or way behind. You know, you're never quite in the fashion, you're just either ahead or behind. And you know, I think unique interests as well, and in the house, the 2nd house of like accumulating wealth or objects, laying foundations, that kind of building orientated 2nd house as well. But that's just one way of looking at it all. It's very interesting. I hope you've enjoyed it. I loved the series. I did have a couple of books I just wanted to point out to you. A little history of astroarchaeology by John Michel. He also wrote a few other books. I think one of them was called Ancient View of Atlantis or something. And it kind of talks about how we're, you know, essentially like we're surrounded by these monuments that are speaking of technology which predates anything we could have ever really conceived as practically or as real, basically, or as possible, basically. But yeah, that's an interesting little book. I've also got Astrology and Cosmology in the World's Religions, and that's by Nick Campion, who is the one of the professors on the Trinity St. David Astrology and Astronomy in the World's not in the World's Religions, Ancient Astronomy and Astrology, the degree course. Anyway, so yes, if you're interested in the idea of belief and where astrology crops up and cosmology crops up in belief systems throughout history, this is a great book for, and it's not just an interesting book, it's actually an academic textbook. So this is one that is, you could definitely quote this to people, and it's backed up with evidence. A History of Western Astrology, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And these are basically looking at astrology again throughout history, and another couple of academic textbooks which you know, they're not like light reads. They're definitely not books that you did like have a light read about, but you know, it's just interesting to understand how interwoven astrology and astronomy was in our previous, you know, in the previous religions, in the previous civilizations, if you believe in in some of the forgotten civilizations that we accept have existed, in the ancient building of the temples, things like Stonehenge, or what's the one on the program he talked about, Göbekli Tepe, Gigantea. I can't remember all of the names of them now, but they're all aligned to astronomical points. They had strong beliefs about certain events occurring, like the Egyptians believed that every time I think the star Sirius would align in a certain place, the Nile would flood. I think it's if Sirius rose, the Nile would flood. So there's a sense of being connected to the heavens, which we don't really have much emphasis on that in modern life anymore. So those are some interesting books for you to have a look at. I highly recommend you watch that documentary. I would love to know whether or not you like it, if it's your cup of tea, or if you think he's an absolute nutter and a complete charlatan who's spreading dangerous information. And if you would like to enter the YouTube subscriber prize draw for the personalized birth chart, which is framed, all you have to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you are a private channel, don't forget to screenshot that you've subscribed. Please thumbs up the video as well, and share it with me, Stephanie@stelliumastrology.com. Don't forget to tell me what your YouTube channel is called, so that I can make sure that I add you to the draw. And if you're a patron, you get an extra entry. So definitely do that, and I will add a link to the beautiful astrological artwork that we are going to be sharing with you guys from Monk's Astrology. So yeah, good luck to all of you for the future draw. I've just recently done the draw for 2022, so check that video out if you entered it, if you're a subscriber already, whether you have won or not. And I'll speak to you guys next time. Take care. Bye now.